The History of Land Plants, Part 1. Plants first arrived on land about 450 million years ago during the Ordovician Period. This is about 50 million years before animals emerged on land. And these plants were very small because they didn't have the systems to move water around their bodies, so they needed to stay low to the ground. And this is before the evolution of seeds, so these plants relied on the presence of water to spread their gametes around for reproduction. Examples of these kinds of plants that you can still find today are mosses and liverworts. The Story of Land Plants, Part 2. As plants became more diverse and populated, they needed to adapt to gain an advantage for light and water. Plants developed vascular systems in the late Ordovician period. This allowed plants to begin to grow up off the ground but continue to carry water to their cells to facilitate functions like cellular respiration. And to support this growth and increased demand for water, plants also began to develop roots. A plant today that's a descendant of this next stage in plant development are ferns. And this is still before seeds. These plants use spores to reproduce, which still depends heavily on the presence of water. The Story of Land Plants, Part 3. Seeds first evolved 390 million years ago in the Devonian Period in gymnosperms, or plants that produce cones like evergreen trees. And this was a big advancement for land plants. These seeds had a decreased need for water compared to earlier plants. They had a protective coating, they were more easily dispersible, and this allowed for the packaged genetic material to wait for favorable conditions to grow. Now these plants didn't depend on being so close to the water, and they could move further inland. But the story doesn't end there. The Story of Land Plants, Part 4. The final adaptation that allowed plants to dominate the lands was the evolution of flowers. About 120 million years ago in the Cretaceous Period, plants developed flowers with male and female parts. The evolution of angiosperms, or flowering plants, also coincided with the evolution of pollinators. Plants developed colorful flowers and strong smells, all in an effort to try to attract these pollinators to spread their genetic material. Although some pollen-producing plants don't really need to go through all this effort because they just use the wind to spread their pollen. Interestingly, it's the pollen from the plants that use the wind to pollinate that actually cause our seasonal allergies, because that's what's in the air and that we're inhaling. The adaptation of pollination allowed plants to be able to reproduce with other plants that are not immediately next to them. This allowed them to migrate more and more around the globe.